Welcome back. So this is the last slide from the first 15-minute lecture. We're talking about the stratification in lakes. And what I was trying to cram in there at the last minutes is how various fish populations within this community will live at these different temperatures and levels of oxygen and nutrient. But as the seasons turn, there's overturn in the nutrient level of those waters, and look at the temperature. So some of the fish that really only reside down here are able to live all through here in the spring and fall. All right, and then of course you have your two extreme times. So even in aquatic ecosystems, you have niches, which we call where different organisms fare better than other places, just like plants would. Marine environment, same sort of thing. It's categorized by distance from shore, abundant amount of light. Up here in the photic zone versus in the depth of water, aphotic, that means no sun is reaching here. But look how long that is. That's about 1,000 meters. We'd never probably even get that far down. 200 meters would be a good distance to scuba. The coral reefs are about 0 to 20 meters down, so it'd be just right up here. And here's what you call that continental shelf where it just drops off. This open ocean's a pelagic zone. I'm not going to hold you responsible for a lot of this, but what I want to get to is with today's lesson is the energy flow and how it proceeds from here. So the total production of organic compounds like sugar, glucose, by plants, that's referred to as primary productivity, or just simply production. It represents the total amount of light energy that is transformed into chemical energy through photosynthesis. All right, and that would then be called gross primary production, GPP. You'll become familiar with that, and you'll need to know it for the exit ticket for the lab that we're going to do. And then plants use that energy, again, to grow, to reproduce, and do other things for maintenance and healing. And then whatever is accumulated and not being used, other animals can feed off of, birds and whatnot. And that biomass is called net primary production. That's the production that can actually be moved on through the ecosystem to other organisms. So interesting to note is only about 1 to 5% of the solar energy in any given location is actually captured for use or storage by plants. So after the plant again has met their metabolic requirements as producers, then that accumulated net primary productivity is what can enter into the food chain. Next slide. There we are. So energy flow in ecosystems. So primary production in an ecosystem predominantly occurs through photosynthetic action of autotrophs called producers, such as plants, algae, and some bacteria. And once that energy has been captured by those autotrophic organisms, it can be passed on to the heterotrophs, that is, the consumers. So they represent, we have two different words. These are ecological terms, producer and consumer. Autotrophs and heterotrophs are more of a biological term. Same thing, though. And consumers have various trophic levels, and that's what we're going to look at next. We're going to look at pyramids to see how we can represent the level of energy versus biomass and the numbers. So a trophic level is made of all the organisms that share the same number of energy transfers from sunlight. So plants are the first, herbivores the second, and carnivores the third. So it would look like this, where you have the first one would be the plants, the second one would be the herbivores that would eat off of those, and then you have carnivores or omnivores as you go up. So each trophic level has a different amount of energy available to it, and is limited then in numbers. All right. Next slide. Oh, it won't let me. There we go. All right, so here is the ecological pyramid of energy. And again, you can see primary producers. Look how much energy they're bringing in from the sun. 10,000 kilocalories, right? So kilocalories are calories. Well, when you look outside, that's all you see are plants absorbing light. And if they didn't, we would not even have a primary consumer level. So these are going to be like your cattle, deer, anything that feeds on birds, just the grass or trees or seeds or fruit and things like that, roots. Those are your primary consumers. And look what energy is available to them. 1,000. That's only 10% of the energy that the primary producers had. If it's fish, maybe small fish, primary consumers feed on the algae. And then upon those small fish, larger fish would be the secondary consumers. 100, they get only 10%. So this is why, I mean, when you look out, you don't see a lot of animals, and not even large animals, especially tertiary consumers only get about 10 kilocalories of energy from this 10,000 kilocalories. So you'll see a lot of green things. You'll see a few animals, and then lesser still of those large animals that are fierce or predators. There's just simply not enough energy going through the system to support that level. Here is the ecological pyramid of biomass. So if you took every animal and or organism and tree, grass, and dehydrated it, this is what you get. It's the total dry weight of organisms, like a standing crop, in a particular trophic level. And that's what we call the biomass, the weight of life. So most pyramids follow the typical pattern of narrowing at each level. So you can start broad base and it gets less and less and less. You can see 800 grams per square meter, 40, 15, 1. So the way, aquatic ecosystems right here would be a little different. So this would be inverted. And that's because phytoplankton can grow and reproduce so rapidly they can support a large population of zooplankton, even though at any one time the biomass of phytoplankton is smaller than that of the zooplankton. So this is a biomass, and it should represent the energy. All right, and that's a quick introduction, anyway, of primary production. You want to know GPP, gross primary production. What is that versus net primary production? You kind of want to understand this diagram of photosynthesis. We have energy expended and we have energy stored. This is what gets on to the next trophic level. You want to understand that there are trophic levels and they can be measured by energy, biomass, or simply numbers. I did not show you the pyramid of numbers, but you can get the idea from looking at these two that the general pattern is as we go up, there's less and less available for the higher ones. Okay. This is where we can also, you can plug in any of your food chains. So here you might have, say, an eagle, which feeds on a snake, which fed on a smaller bird or mouse or rodent, which was eating seeds or feeding on plants, right? And at every level of the way, energy was used and or lost as heat. And that's why only 10% ever goes up. We'll see this concept up close and personal in the lab for this lecture.